The University of Guelph has been teaching people how to make ice cream for over 100 years. We have trained more than 3,000 people from around the globe in the science and art of ice cream. But how did that even begin? As the province's expert in dairy science and dairy processing, I guess it was a natural fit for the Ontario Agricultural College. In 1914, growing interest in commercial ice cream manufacture sparked the creation of our first two-week short course on ice cream. Before that, ice cream had primarily been made in the home, using ice as the freezing medium. Refrigeration, of course, was the issue with ice cream manufacture and retailing at the commercial level. When electricity became more available industrially, so did ice cream freezers and frozen storage, and that began the commercial ice cream manufacturing industry. Okay, welcome everybody to the Ice Cream Lab in the Department of Food Science at the University of Guelph. I'm Professor Doug Goff, OEC 82, and this is Alyssa Francavilla. She is going to assist me this afternoon to make some ice cream. Alyssa is our outreach coordinator in the department and also a graduate student. One of the things we do in this laboratory is to teach the annual ice cream technology course. It's now run for 107 years, and in all of that time there's only been 4 instructors. I personally have now taught it for 34 years. The Ice Cream Laboratory here at the University of Guelph is set up primarily for teaching of both undergraduate students and all the industry professionals who come into our ice cream technology courses from around the world. We also have the capability here in the pilot plant of manufacturing ice cream up to a fairly large scale, so we can do several hundred to a few thousand liters a day if we had the need to do that. So behind me are mix tanks where we would do blending of ingredients and pasteurization of mix to have the mix ready to go for freezing. Behind me here now is our continuous ice cream freezer. It's what I'd call a small but industrial scale freezer. So it would mimic the same process that would happen when you got up into an ice cream factory. We can make a few hundred liters per hour off of this freezer. The principle of a continuous freezer is that this is a continuous process. So mix is always being fed into it, air is being injected into it, it's being frozen and whipped at the same time, and you always have ice cream being ejected out the other end. The ice cream is coming out in that soft state, and that's again when particulates like fruit or nuts or candy pieces can get stirred into it before it would be packaged and hardened. We're well known for our ice cream here at the University of Guelph through both our teaching and our research programs, but also because of our outreach program. Perhaps if you've been here before on a College Royal weekend or on an alumni weekend, you've had the opportunity to try some of our ice cream or the famous College Royal milkshakes. So it's all done here. We're extremely proud of this facility and we love showing it off. So if you haven't been here before, the next time you come to campus, don't hesitate to give us a call. The first thing I'd like to explain as part of our ice cream making demonstration is the mix making portion. I've already done this up and I've got 2 liters of ice cream mix here ready to go. The recipe for doing that is online, but in our particular recipe we used 2 liters of table cream, so 18% fat cream. The advantage of using this compared to 35% or heavy cream is that this is already homogenized and it'll make a smoother product without worrying about the fat churning out from heavy cream. So we've used 2 liters of 18% fat cream, and then we've supplemented some skim milk powder into that. That's just grocery store skim milk powder. Sugar. We've used a little bit of Knox gelatin. That helps to thicken it up a little bit and improves the texture. So 1 envelope of the Knox gelatin and 1 egg. So that's our recipe. When we make up the mix, we always do it in a double boiler, so on top of water. and that gives you more even heat without worrying about scorching the bottom on top of the stove. And because we have a raw egg in that, we pasteurize it. So start heating the mix up, stir the ingredients in fairly slowly with a whisk, if you've got a good whisk. Heat that up to about 65 to 70 degrees Celsius, and then you can cool that back down just in water in the sink. That works fine to get the initial heat out of it, and then get it in the refrigerator in a couple of containers. And it's best to make the mix the day or two before you want to freeze it. Once it's had a chance to refrigerate, then it sets up much better. After the mix has been refrigerated overnight, that's the time when you can flavor it. So this afternoon I'm just going to use vanilla flavor. About 3 mils per liter is a good level of addition of vanilla. So I'm just going to take, I've already measured that out, just pour a little vanilla in there and give that a real good stir up. There's lots of different flavors you can make at home that would be acceptable. One of the things that we quite often do is take instant coffee and just dissolve that in a little bit of water and make a really strong coffee flavor and add that to ice cream mix. Any flavor like mint or anything that's going to be homogeneous in the ice cream you can add to the mix, but anything that you want to remain as a particulate sort of chunk like fruits or nuts could be added after you've frozen the ice cream. When it's semi-frozen, then you can stir that in and it'll retain the integrity of the berries or whatever you want to use in it. So something like strawberry jam works really nicely to make a strawberry ice cream, or any fruit that has already been sugared will make a nice flavor. Now the way we're going to make ice cream this afternoon is in an old-fashioned bucket with salt and ice, and that may bring back memories for a lot of you of how ice cream used to be made many years ago. My mother used to tell stories about haying in the summertime and how after haying was done they'd always make a big bucket full of ice cream. So we're going to do it the old-fashioned way here and explain how all this works. So the ice cream freezer we have is an old White Mountain bucket freezer. You can see the can, and inside that can is a scraper blade and a little dasher. The dasher is going to help whip air into it, and these scraper blades are going to keep scraping the frozen layer of ice cream mix off of the inside of the can and keep stirring it up in the bulk of that mix as we go. So I've flavored my mix. I'm going to pour that into the can. So that's 2 liters of mix, and that gives us lots of headspace in there. And that headspace is going to fill up with ice cream as it whips air into it. Ice cream is a foam, it's got a lot of air into it, and so we have to leave room for that expansion of the mix as it whips the air into it. Now I'm going to let Alyssa pack that with the ice and salt, and I'll just explain the heat transfer process that's going on. Some people, when they reflect back on this process, they remember that there's a lot of salt involved, and somehow or other they think the salt ended up in the ice cream. It doesn't. The salt is actually used to bring the temperature of the ice down. We have sugar in the ice cream mix. That depresses the freezing point, so we have to get a brine solution that's cold enough that it's lower in temperature than the ice cream and the ice cream mix, and then we'll freeze the mix. So what the salt does is bring the temperature of the ice down. We'll stick a thermometer in there and have a look at it after she gets it packed. But a ratio of about 1 to 10, 1 part of salt to 10 parts of ice, will give you a brine temperature of about -6 to -8 degrees, and that's ideal for freezing the ice cream mix. So an easy way to check that is just to have a thermometer and look at the temperature of the brine after you get it packed. And that -6 to -8 degree range in the brine is ideal. So when she's packing that, she's putting a layer of ice in and then a layer of salt on top of that, another layer of ice and a layer of salt, and building that up about 3 times in there to make sure that the salt is well distributed. And a little bit of water on the top to help dissolve that salt, and then we should have a good brine. Now that we've got the ice and salt packed in there, we're going to get the crank on and be able to crank that. Now we're going to cheat a little bit. Back in the old days, it used to be a hand crank, but we have an electric motor here to turn this. So now that we have the motor running, the can is turning, and that dasher that was inside the can is turning the other way. So you get that multi-action, and that gives a lot of whipping in there to whip air into the mix. And also then for the heat transfer, ice that forms inside the ice cream is going to cause the ice out in the bucket to melt. And so we have to keep adding ice to it, and then we have to keep adding salt to it to make sure we maintain that brine temperature. And this will take about 20 minutes to freeze. Now, the moment we've been waiting for. The ice cream is ready to go, so we'll pull that out and see what it looks like inside and see how it's going to taste. Yeah. So there, you can see that it's pretty well frozen up. Fairly soft consistency yet, but that would need to just go into get packed in a container and put in the freezer now for a couple of hours before serving. And this is the excellent consistency for adding any mix-ins that you want to add to it. So if you were going to stir in some fruit or nuts or any other chocolate pieces or cookies, whatever you wanted to put in it now would be the time to stir that in. Then let it set up in the freezer for an hour or two, and you're going to have yourself a nice tasty treat. There, try that, Alyssa, and tell me what you think. So now we're going to show a little hack to the process, something that might work at home and something that might be fun, especially with children, to get them involved and get some hands-on activity. So this is a bag-in-a-bag trick. We have 2 Ziploc bags. They need to be the heavy freezer bags, so they've got a good seal on them. What we're going to do is put the mix in one bag with a little bit of a headspace in it, and then we're going to put that into the larger bag and pack the larger bag with our salt and ice, and then just shake it for 10 minutes and hope that we make ice cream inside the bag. So Alyssa's going to get this ready. You don't want to fill that bag too full. You want to leave a bit of headspace, a bit of airspace in it, so seal it off with it's still got some air in it. And then we'll try to get our ice and salt in there on both sides of that bag. Don't forget the salt. We need lots of salt in there to keep that brine temperature low. If it's just backed in ice, it's not cold enough to freeze the ice cream mix. The key to the success here now is going to be the agitation so that we get a little bit of air at least into the mix and we get fairly rapid freezing. So let the kids throw it around, do whatever they can to keep it well shaken up. The other thing to note is that because we've created that brine with the salt, the bag gets very cold. That's about -6 degrees there, or -8 degrees. So make sure that children wear gloves because it'll be pretty cold on their hands. Now we're ready to try our bag-in-the-bag ice cream. There you can see it's nice and firm. And ready to go. So the key to make that work is, first of all, to make sure that your brine temperature is nice and cold. Maintain lots of salt in that ice to keep that brine temperature cold. And keep shaking it for as long as you can maintain the enthusiasm of the shaker. The more that gets shaken and agitated, the smoother that ice cream inside is going to be.
So how would you make ice cream at home, and what would you look for in equipment?
Well, you saw our old-fashioned freezer that we use, which is an ice and salt method, but there's lots of other ways to do it. I think if you just go to Google on the internet, you can find lots of different pieces of equipment. There are some that have a refrigeration unit built into them. If you want to spend $300 or $400, you can buy an ice cream maker that would make it all. Otherwise, you can buy attachments for home mix masters and that sort of thing that will also make ice cream, and then you could put it into the freezer to freeze it up. But the important thing would be to spend enough money to get a good quality freezer that's going to make some good ice cream for you.
What's the most common ice cream fail that you make at home, and how can we avoid it?
Well, I think that what I hear from a lot of people is that the ice cream is very hard and also very coarse in texture compared to what you would buy in the grocery store. So there's two things there. One is the rate of freezing, and you need to control that rate of freezing to try to get small ice crystals, not freeze it too fast, but also get a low enough temperature while it's still being whipped that you've got good ice crystal size. And then the other thing is that people change the recipe and change the formulation a little bit, and they forget about the really important role of sugar in helping to depress the freezing point. So if you cut down on sugar, your ice cream is going to be very hard.
So what's the craziest ice cream flavor you've ever tried or made?
One time here when we were teaching the ice cream course, we had a few people from Mexico. And so what they wanted to do for these people from Mexico was to use hot jalapeno peppers in the ice cream. And I've never had an ice cream before that made me sweat, but it was really hot stuff. So that was the craziest thing we've ever done here. But if you look around the world, you find ice cream that's made with everything from beans and corn to fish and beer and you name it. So the sky's the limit in terms of what you want to be able to put into ice cream in terms of a flavor.
So where do you think the ice cream industry is going, and how will U of G play a role in that?
That's a good question. I'd split it up a couple of different ways. In terms of the dairy-based ice creams, we see a lot of trends now towards things like high-protein ice cream and other sorts of health benefits. But largely the ice cream industry still makes an indulgent treat, and we can't forget about that. So we have had a lot of research projects related to these sorts of healthy trends, including high protein and how to do a really good low sugar ice cream and maintain the quality. The other trend that's really quite big right now is in the non-dairy type products. And there's an increasing demand for those plant-based or vegan-style frozen desserts. And again, we've, through our product development group here at the university, we've done several projects related to the development of non-dairy frozen dessert products.
You mentioned the difference between ice cream and frozen dessert. Do you mind explaining that a little better?
In the marketplace, when you go to the grocery store, you'll see products that are named ice cream, and you'll see other products that are named frozen dessert. Usually the name is in very small print down in the corner somewhere if it's a frozen dessert. But frozen desserts are ice cream type products in which the milk fat has been replaced with a plant fat, typically palm kernel oil or coconut oil. And they do that to save cost because those fats are much less costly than milk fat is. But quite often consumers really don't know the difference. They see the frozen product in the grocery store, it looks like ice cream, and they haven't looked close enough to realize that it's not made with milk fat.
Other than the difference between ice cream and frozen dessert and one being cheaper and one being more expensive, why are some brands of ice cream more expensive than others?
The biggest factor is the air content, to be honest. That's what we call overrun in the industry, and there's a maximum amount of air that can be put into the product. But if you want to keep the cost down and make a product that's going to sell at that economy range, then you're going to put as much air into it as you can. Ice cream is a foam, it's whipped, and air is whipped into it to make that volume, and that's why it's soft and scoopable. So the more air you can put in there, the cheaper the product is going to be. The other factor would be the fat content. Fat is the most expensive ingredient, so if you are making an economy brand ice cream, you'd keep the fat down to the bare minimum. On the other hand, if you're doing a super premium type of product, then you're going to get the fat higher for the textural property of the fat and keep the air content lower. So fat and air are the biggest contributors to price. And when you go to the grocery store, you can see quite a wide spectrum in price.
So if you had to pick one flavor of ice cream to eat, what would it be?
As a professional, I always eat vanilla because that's the best way to detect the underlying flavor of the ice cream. But honestly, I guess I'm a chocolate guy when it comes to heart. And how about you? What's your favorite flavor?
Oh, there aren't many that I don't like. I guess my favorite flavor is either mint chocolate chip or strawberry.
Ah, very good. I was a strawberry lover once upon a time too, but my tastes have changed a little bit.
So what has your research primarily focused on, and how has that contributed to the ice cream industry?
There's two areas where we've done a lot of research here at the university in ice cream, and one would be in ingredient functionality. So we've worked with new and novel stabilizing and emulsifying compounds, and with new and novel milk protein ingredients, and a lot of the sugar replacement types of products. So ingredient functionality, and then in quality, all the issues that affect quality and preserving shelf life over a longer period of time to deliver quality to the consumer. A lot of focus on ice crystal size and the things that affect ice crystal size, all with that intent to maintain quality. We hope you have enjoyed our demonstration this afternoon. Thanks for joining us, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of the activities that are hosted during Alumni and Reunion Week, and as always, we appreciate the support of alumni to the university.
For great tips and an amazing recipe for making ice cream at home, you can go to our website that's linked here and experiment away.